Attention sports teams. Let us introduce you to the best fan engagement tool in the game, .vote. By getting a .vote web address for your team, you can allow fans to engage and interact with big-time decisions. In a single click, not only can fans make their opinions heard, but sports teams get a better understanding of their fans' interests. Keep your fans engaged. Simply visit GoDaddy.com today, type in the desired name of your web address, and let the voting begin.
Is Giannis heading west? The Giants' great offseason takes a major detour, and we'll talk a little minor league baseball with new Valley League Commissioner Rick Furr, all ahead on this edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Hey, welcome in, off and running, another edition of Gordon Damer on Sports, episode number 74 of the podcast. Lots to get into, plenty to talk about as the countdown to Super Bowl 60 continues. Patriots, Seahawks, and boy, the game cannot get here soon enough after a weekend without NFL football for the first time since September. Are you kidding me? Can't wait for this Sunday. Another thing we're counting down the days to, and man, this can't get here soon enough, the NBA trade deadline, to finally have a definitive answer once and for all, whether or not Giannis is going to get traded here, if he's going to get traded there, who's going to trade, is anybody going to trade for him? And one team that's getting floated right now that I think would be making a massive mistake if they made that move. Speaking of massive mistakes, the Friday news dump that we got in the NFL with the Giants co-owner Steve Tisch's name being involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So certainly not good news for the Giants this offseason, and that story, what I think will end up happening, because there's been a lot of opinion since that story dropped about what is going to happen. I'll tell you what more than likely is going to happen when it comes to that story. And then we're going to talk a little minor league baseball. With it being so cold, oh my goodness, baseball can't get here soon enough, and we're going to talk with the new commissioner of the Valley League down in Virginia. Our buddy Rick Furr just took over as commissioner, and man, who doesn't need a little baseball talk when it's freezing cold here in the Northeast? So we'll have a fun conversation with Rick about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that he is facing taking over that job. It's a fun conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. But before we get to any of that, got to ask you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you're taking the podcast in on. Like the episode if you can, rate the episode if you can, share it with a friend, but most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Only takes a second. And it's the best thing of all. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you any money. So it really does help the podcast grow in 2026. All right, let's get into a little NBA because the trade deadline is coming up. And you know, just because a move is bold does not mean that that move is smart. And I bring this up in regards to the trade rumors involving Giannis. And one team that has been floated a lot lately is the Golden State Warriors. Could the Golden State Warriors be the destination for Giannis Antetokounmpo? And look, the Golden State Warriors, just because you can trade for Giannis does not necessarily mean you should trade for Giannis. And the Warriors have a couple of appealing things in regards to why they could be in this conversation. But they're kind of staring at the same situation, really, that the Bucks were just staring at. Because that's what this really is. This isn't about Giannis being available and being able to pair him up with Steph and the possibility of more titles. This is about panic for an organization that has won titles before. So you can use whatever terminology you want to use. The reality is obvious. Giannis being available, with the deadline being on February 5th, there are certain teams that are going to hear that ticking clock louder than others. And I think that the Golden State Warriors are probably deluding themselves into thinking that their clock is still ticking, because at the end of the day, Father Time is undefeated. And the Warriors are falling into the same kind of trap that the Bucks just were in, where they think to themselves, you know what, we can fight off Father Time for a little while longer and be able to avoid the reality of our situation. And the reality of their situation is Steph Curry's in year 17. He's going to turn 38 in March. And we know what this is. This is desperation masquerading as ambition. And it's the same trap that a lot of teams fall into. But most specifically, the Milwaukee Bucks just fell into it not that long ago, because they figured, you know what, as long as we got Giannis, we got to keep pushing in more assets to try that win that second title. We got to try to win another championship and keep Giannis happy. But at the end of the day, that window closed. And at this point with the Golden State Warriors, and maybe Golden State Warrior fans don't want to hear this, the best days of the Steph Curry Warriors have already taken place. They're already behind you. Now, that doesn't mean that Steph Curry isn't still an amazing player and a Hall of Famer and all those type of things. But again, Father Time is undefeated. And what are the Warriors this year? 3 or 4 games over 500? They're basically a play-in team. So Golden State trading for Giannis right now would be a denial of reality and trying to freeze a moment of time that has already passed. It's already gone. And when the bill comes due, it will be catastrophic. So let's talk about some of the costs and really why the Warriors, if the situation were different, they would be the ideal spot because the Warriors currently have their draft picks. They have 4 first-round picks and a pick swap, I think, in 2031. Those picks are the only real bridge for when Steph Curry decides to hang them up, which is coming sooner rather than later. So people will tell you, well, those will be late first-round picks. Those won't really matter. Yeah, that's what the lie that teams and fans tell themselves before the fall comes, because we've seen this movie before. Milwaukee kind of told itself the same thing, or Brooklyn, or even Phoenix kind of told themselves the same thing at a time. Like, don't worry about tomorrow. Yeah, sure, maybe our core is aging slightly, but we can make one last push. Yeah, we can mortgage the future, and we'll figure it out later. Well, the problem with that, of course, is that later always tends to show up a lot sooner than you expected. And I would say as great a player and as transformational as Steph Curry has been, he's not LeBron. He's not going to age like LeBron. He's more dependent on movement. And you're not trading for Giannis with thinking the idea of pairing those two guys for the next 5 years. You're talking about maybe 2 years, maybe 3 if everything were to fall perfectly. And what would you be giving away in the deal? Well, you'd have to probably give away Kuminga. All right, no great shakes there. And you'd probably have to trade away Jimmy Butler's contract just to make the financial aspects of it work. But you would also be trading away your future 4 first-round picks that stretch into the 2030s, which is not that far away, but it's still quite far away. And when that happens, Steph Curry will be long retired, and those picks probably won't be late first. So to me, that's not aggressive. That's just simply reckless. Because the uncomfortable question here that Golden State kind of has to answer for themselves is, let's say you're able to add Giannis, right? And you give up the draft picks and the math works and the players work. Is Golden State even really good enough out west? I mean, the West is absolutely brutal. That's why there's a separation of the conversation between the Knicks making the finals and the Knicks winning the finals. Yeah, they can make the finals, but can they win the finals with Oklahoma City and Denver and the Spurs and Minnesota, even Houston? Giannis doesn't magically fix all the problems of the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, he raises the ceiling some, and it does give them 2 superstars in the moment. But how long is that moment going to last? And let's be clear about Giannis himself. We brought this up on the previous pod. He's 31, but he's also a player who's always gotten by on physicality, on his natural physical abilities. How much longer do you think that's going to last? Because he's starting to hit an age where that athletic dominance starts to erode. This isn't 2019 Giannis. This is a star who needs the right fit and not a team that is simply hitting the panic button as a way to kind of stave off the future. Which also brings us back to the Bucks parallel. And to me, that's the most important part of the conversation because the Warriors should be looking at the Bucks and thinking we could be just like that and not in a good way. They spent years, and I guess it kind of made sense because they had Giannis, they were coming off a title, and they just kept kind of trying to do whatever they could to keep the window open, and they pushed the inevitable rebuild further and further and further into the future. And that's why they have to hit a home run with this Giannis trade. So if Golden State were to make a trade for Giannis, they would be making the same mistake, but only far, far louder. Because when Steph is done, there is no safety net. There's no superstar pipeline. You are back at square one again. And what are you back at square one with? No picks. Maybe you would still have Giannis because he is significantly younger. Again, he's 31, but a history of leg injuries and nothing behind him. So here's the quiet part nobody wants to maybe say out loud. the Warriors don't need to save Steph from reality. I think that they, as an organization, kind of have to face reality, right? And they kind of have to respect where they're at. They've had an amazing run, a run as great as anyone could have expected, right? And I don't think that Steph Curry is going to be the type of player that demands a desperate trade to save his legacy or build his legacy. He is the legacy. They've won the rings there, right? The rings prove it. And the idea that the Warriors owe it to Steph because of all the success that they've had, that's an emotional decision. And I get that maybe in the heat of moment, you feel emotional about a great player in his final years, but you have to make realistic decisions about where you're at. So if Golden State were to pull the trigger on a Giannis trade, to me, they're not extending the window. They're maybe pushing it open slightly, but they're slamming the door behind it for whenever that moment passes. And it would pass probably a lot quicker than you think, because once those picks are gone and the depth is kind of stripped and the future has been mortgaged off, there's no pivot left. And look, you're going to be back at square one no matter what, but it's a far more appealing situation if you're back at square one with all your draft picks still intact. It takes years to build up that kind of reservoir. That's why the Bucks are probably interested more in the Warriors than the Warriors should be in them. They're the one team that still has all their picks left, and they're going to need those picks sooner rather than later. So in terms of a Giannis trade, I'll be happy when the deadline is gone. And I think what will end up happening, even people around the NBA aren't saying it out loud because they're making, it's 50-50. Yeah, it's just obviously that nobody really knows what's going to happen. I think it's more likely than not that the Bucks decide, you know what, there's no slam dunk kind of offer right now. So if you don't have power, you delay. And I think the Bucks would be best in delaying until the offseason, allowing Giannis to get healthy, allowing teams to kind of recoup some of their picks, right? Like the Knicks can't trade a pick until draft night. And you get to see where, if you're talking about a team that would be willing to go all in and that would be in the right situation to go all in, I think the Knicks are more of that type of that team. The Rockets are more of that type of team. So I think that the Bucks will evaluate this situation, and unless some team comes with just a grand slam offer, an offer you can't refuse, I think that after the trade deadline, Giannis is going to be in the same spot he's been in this entire time, and that is with the Milwaukee Bucks. All right, we're joined now by Rick Furr, the newly elected commissioner of the Valley Baseball League. So, Rick, thanks for giving us a couple of minutes. And first off, congratulations on the new role.
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate it, man. I look forward to talking to you. I know you and I have a good friend, acquaintance, and looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, what is, for those of us who are just, baseball fans or sports fans, what does a commissioner do all day?
Well, I'm learning. Actually, the Valley Baseball League was started in 1897, and it was sanctioned by the NCAA in 1961. And today we have 12 teams that are in the Shenandoah Valley area. 11 of those teams are, and one team is, of course, the Purcellville Cannons, which they're in Loudoun County, Virginia. And what my job is that I work with all 12 teams, all 12 owners, and they're called board presidents because we're a 501c3 league. A lot of collegiate summer leagues have gone to that, the Cape Cod, a lot of leagues. The New England Collegiate Baseball League is also a 501c3. And what my job is to really, we go out and we find people that are in the community that want to be supporters of the ball club. A lot of people who want to fundraise and donate to us is very important. And then also helping teams really market the ball club. Most teams already have their players. We have good owners, good board directors that recruit their players, and just really overall make sure that we're following the guidelines because we're partially funded by Major League Baseball, and we have to follow those guidelines and really help develop the game. I mean, at the end of the day, there's 30 Major League Baseball teams, and our job is to help develop these players in the summertime to be ready to be drafted to hopefully move on to the next level.
Yeah, and it's a wooden bat league, which is a major part of this as well, right?
Yes, sir. It sure is, Gordon. A lot of people don't realize is that, college guys play with an aluminum and it's a big drop. I mean,
Yeah.
when you go with a wooden bat, it's a big difference. And I know, I think scouts, a lot of my friends are scouts, Major League Baseball scouts, work in front office, and it really helps them evaluate players, especially hitters,
Yeah.
in that role.
Absolutely. So in the role of commissioner, this is, as you mentioned, a very long historic league. Do
Yeah.
you view yourself more of a steward of what has come before you, or do you look at as we have to grow this league in different revenue streams and stuff like that? What do you see your role is as commissioner?
Well, the good news is that I played in this league.
Oh, okay.
I played in this league in 1979. I played for the Winchester Royals, and the gentleman that owned the ball club back then, it was not a 501c3 back then. I played for a guy named Keith Lupton. And Keith actually got me my first job in professional baseball when he worked in the Baltimore Orioles organization. And he was really like a mentor to me. In 1979 was our first year with the Winchester Royals. We came into a historic league in the Valley Baseball League, and we won the Valley League our first year. We won it in 1979. And Keith owned the ball club for 3 years, and he won the championship all 3 years. But what was great about Keith, to my knowledge, is the only gentleman in professional baseball that was named the executive of the year in the Carolina League, the South Atlantic League, and the Eastern League. So I worked for Keith when we were the Bowie Bay Sox in the Baltimore Orioles organization. And being a player, I kind of tease our board directors that, when we have our board meetings, is that, I understand what they do because I was a former player. And I think it makes a big difference. And, even though I played for the Winchester Royals, my job is to look out for all 12 teams. But I played in the league, and I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's been sanctioned, I think you said since 61 by the NCAA, and it has I think it's like the motto of the gateway to the majors. How much pride do you take in the fact that you can look at the majors in the course of the year and see guys who played in this in the VBL?
Well, that's one of the things that's really important, that in the past years of the Valley Baseball League, like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you saw guys all the time in the major leagues that played in the Valley Baseball League. Now, last year, we had 35 players drafted in Major League Baseball. We want to try to get back to that D1 level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that there's not good players in D2 or NAIA, but when you're a host family and you're in Virginia and a kid comes and plays, on the team, let's just say the Harrisonburg Turks, which is a historic classic franchise in the Valley League, and you played NC State, well, that host family really follows you. So when you come to play at Virginia or Virginia Tech and you're NC State, those parents that kept you for the summer are going to follow you to see you play. And that's what really makes host families really important in our Valley Baseball League, because it's very, very important to have that connections. But the thing about it is, like Troy Lesavage, if I'm pronouncing his name right, pitched game one for the Blue Jays.
Trey, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Trey.
Yeah.
He played for the Charlottesville Tom Sox 2 years ago. And Randy Tomlin, is the head coach for the Charlottesville Tom Sox, and of course, Randy played in the big leagues for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So in our league, you have guys who are former Major League Baseball players that manage. You also have some guys that coached in college. You have some high school coaches. And last year with the Purcellville Cannons, we had Manny Ramirez and Rafael Furcal as assistant coaches because their sons played for the Purcellville Cannons. So part of the commissioner's job is I want to work with all the teams and make sure that we have really good coaches, because it's really important to develop the players.
Yeah, and when you get big names like that, Manny Ramirez, Rafael Furcal, as you mentioned, how much does that improve the visibility of the league outside of the standard people who know about the league and that type of thing?
Well, that's good. Gordon, that's a great question because it's funny because as I travel around the country, I just came back from Columbus, Ohio at the ABCA meetings. And when you tell people that are out west, where the Valley Baseball League, some people like Valley, like, where is it? Now, if you're the East Coast and you're Virginia, it's the Shenandoah Valley area. But from a marketing and branding standpoint, I had a conversation with a couple of our board directors is that, maybe we need to go back to the Shenandoah Valley Baseball League, because when you talk about Shenandoah Valley, most people know Shenandoah Valley is located in Virginia. And, people don't realize, but like the Cape Cod, the Cape, I believe, in the summer gets additional 600 and some thousand visitors that come onto the Cape. Well, the Shenandoah Valley is the number one tourist attraction in the state of Virginia. In the months of June, July, and August, when we're playing baseball, or I should say the end of May, we probably get 400,000, 300,000 new people in the Shenandoah Valley area because of tourism. So that's what I'm trying to remind our ball clubs is how we have to market our club, because our towns are like, we just had two towns, Stanton, Virginia, and Charlottesville, that were voted in the top 12 small towns in America of having one of the best main streets in America. So, you have to market those clubs and let people know that when you come to the Shenandoah Valley area, whether you're camping, kayaking, going down the river, that you have some of the best college baseball players in your own backyard.
Yeah. So how do you market it for them, for people that, are not from the area?
Well, the one thing is that each club, I always tell the clubs, I've told the clubs this as the new commissioner, there's two things I won't do. I won't tell you who to hire as a coach, and I won't tell you how to set your ticket pricing. I think each club should have that flexibility to do what they want to do. Part of my job coming from minor league baseball as a former general manager, marketing ball clubs, I'm into branding and I'm into marketing. And I think that's one of the things that helped me be elected as the new commissioner was my background in helping them raise money, fundraising, and marketing. So people have to realize that the Shenandoah Valley is that Interstate 81. If anybody's driven through Virginia, Interstate 81 is a nightmare. I mean, it's a double lane highway. I mean, you got tons of trucks and all that, but you have over 600,000 people every day travel on Interstate 81. So going to all the hotels up and down where your towns are is critical, because there are a lot of people that are in their 50s or 60s driving during the summertime. They want to get to their hotel 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or whatever, get checked in. Well, what a great way to go see a college baseball game in the evening. It's just a great way to be able to be entertained. And that's what it's all about. It's really entertainment, and it's also player development.
You mentioned player development. How much has that changed dramatically in your time associated with this league, right? With analytics everywhere now. How has the Valley Baseball League kind of evolved to keep up with that?
That's a great question, because all 30 Major League Baseball teams today, I mean, when you and I were growing up, we probably never saw a guy in the 8th inning have a no-hitter.
Right.
And they were going to take him out of the ball game. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Yeah. But you got these Ivy League guys, and I'm not saying nothing against Ivy League guys, but you got these people who are, the ball clubs are filled with data analytics people. So we're looking at technology right now. We have some really interesting technology that we're negotiating with some companies that can film a player on your phone, and it will give you a breakout of AI technology about what you can do. It will rate you whether you're a top prospect. It will rate you. It will do a lot of good things, but it also gives you the tools to use to better yourself as far as the development goes. And I think that's where the future of this game is going, because the more we can give data analytics back to our Major League Baseball clubs for our players, it makes a big difference. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, look, the players they respond to this stuff, right? I mean, like they want any edge that they can get. You know, a lot of times it does feel like there's a lot of negative aspects of it too. But if there's some real data that can show them, you know, how to get a couple of extra inches of a break on a curveball, or how to, you know, go the other way in a more effective way,
Right.
players do respond to whatever information is out there for sure.
They do. And what's really interesting at the ABCA, if you ran across the player, they already had their video on their phones.
Right.
You could take their technology, you could take that technology, that phone, download their their footage, their, you know, of them playing, and within 5-6 minutes, I could come back on a report. It's really happening. And you know, like with Major League Baseball, the company, I can't think of the name of it, it's called Triject or whatever. They now have them in every Major League Baseball stadium, where I can put in. And during the World Series, it was a big controversy between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, because each ball club had Triject. Well, if the Dodgers put in a pitcher, they could go back in the tunnel, put in a computer model, and then you would see that guy throwing to you coming out of the video, and then get ready to go up to the plate and bat. I mean, it's amazing the technology that's going on in the game today.
All right, so when baseball scouts, major league scouts show up, what are they evaluating from these kids? Is it raw tools? Is it numbers? Is it approach? Is it something else? What are they looking for now?
I think that you know, each team is different. You know, as I talk to different teams, some teams rely a lot on data analytics, like the New York Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Very good friends with the gentleman that scouts in this area. He was an ex-college baseball coach. I mean, you know, he's got a great reputation. And the Yankees rely a little bit on data analytics, but they really rely on their scouts to really know about how to look at a guy. They can really project, it's this type of player we want in our organization. Most teams do a lot of interviews. I know, like the Yankees, just down here in Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina, they've interviewed all the players that they're interested in seeing this spring. They've interviewed them. They know exactly who they are, what they're about, and they have a good track record of them. Then you got some teams that send in the data analytics, and, you know, they process it back at their home, you know, at their ball club, and go about their process. But the game has really changed. There's some teams that still, they use data analytics, but it's not their ultimate decision. They allow that decision to be based upon the scouts, where there's some organizations, Gordon, that are just up and down completely data analytics.
Yeah.
And it
seems
really
like
becomes to the agent, the finances, and all that.
Yeah.
You know?
I almost feel like for a lot of these teams, the reason why it's grown, and look, a lot of it is effective. Like if it were not, if it didn't actually translate into winning, teams would shy away from it. But I think that a lot of the owners are not hardcore baseball people. They're hardcore numbers people, right? They're data people. And
Right.
to be able to explain to your team owner a lot of times how, you know, this is going to grow, or this player is going to be better in a second year or a third year, it's more effective to show them hard numbers that kind of make that argument for them.
It is. You know, unfortunately, you know, even in football, like, you know, I look at the last NFC championship game, you know, I can't remember what team it was, but they elected not to kick the field goal. They tried to go for
the
it.
Broncos, right? Yeah, the Broncos against the Patriots for sure. And Sean Payton kind of kicked himself afterwards, not going for it.
Right. That's the game I'm thinking about. Yeah. And, you know, and I thought when Sean decided not to kick the field goal, I'm like, okay, somebody up there up top looking at data analytics. Mm-hmm. And then the weather got bad, and it really messed up the kicking game. And that was a situation, in my opinion. I thought the looking at data analytics would cost them the game. You know, in that situation.
Well, Joe Torre with the Yankees always would say to Cashman, you know, the numbers are great, but keep in mind that the game has a bit of a heartbeat as well, right? Like there's actual humans playing the game. So it's tough sometimes to be able to decipher, you know, what numbers can you really trust, and how much do you have to be able to trust the players as well. The summer collegiate baseball experience, I'm sure, is one that lives and dies with fan engagement and passion and all that type of stuff. But in the times that we live, things are getting more expensive. How do you make that the type of thing where fans can it's still affordable, but it gives the fans what they're looking for when they come out to the ballpark?
Well, that's one of the things I learned real quick as a general manager in the minor leagues. We never promoted like in the major leagues. You promote like in the Orioles with Cal Ripken during his time frame, and with his amount of games he played. In the minor leagues, we never promoted the players. Even when Jeffrey Hammonds was the #1 draft pick with the Orioles, we never promoted Hammonds being with the Bowie Bay Sox or Armando Benitez or we had tons of players on our team that got to the big leagues. We always promoted family entertainment. That's one of the things I love about minor league baseball is that players are accessible. You can get their autographs. They'll talk to you.
Yeah.
It's just a whole different atmosphere.
Absolutely.
And it's like that, like when you go to spring training. I tell people all the time, if you ever want to go to Major League Baseball and enjoy yourself, go to spring training because the players are relaxed. They're not, I know they're looking for a long season, but they're more accessible to signing autographs. And when we look at our teams in the summer collegiate leagues, the thing I love about the Shenandoah Valley Baseball League is that we're small towns. Now, granted, Charlottesville, we have, the home of University of Virginia. Harrisonburg, we have the home of James Madison University. James Madison has been, their athletic program has been fantastic. And we have small colleges like the Winchester Royals play at Shenandoah University. But then we have teams like Woodstock, they play at their high school field. Strasburg plays at a high school field. The Front Royal Cardinals play at a stadium that was donated years and years ago by Bing Crosby, Crosby Field. And Stanton has a unique ballpark. It's a city ballpark. So each town has a uniqueness about the fields, about the community. Like the Percival Cannons, they play in Percival at Fireman's Field. It's a beautiful complex. It's got big 100 oak trees, like 100 years old oak trees all around the ballpark. There they can sell beer. They sell wine. Loudoun County is the richest county in the United States. And what they find is people come to the ballparks there. The kids love to be entertained, but the parents come there as groups, drink wine, have a beer, might wake up in the 7th inning like, oh, the game's tied 1-1. We better root for our home team, But the thing about it is that the kids come there. They have a great time. It's a safe environment. And one thing you do is when you travel through the valley, you find people that grow up in these small towns that have lived there. This is what they look for. This is a form of entertainment for them in the summertime because it's really big. And that's what's really good about it because you get more people moving in. Like Winchester has a lot more new people coming into the market. Well, a lot of people don't remember the Winchester Royals starting in 1979. But the ball club has to get out there and reach those new people because that whole area is growing. And I'm sure you see it like when Long Island and the different minor league ball clubs that came into the New York area, when minor league baseball expanded, you had to get out to those markets because not everybody can afford to go to a Yankees or a Mets game.
Right. Yeah.
You just can't afford it.
Parking enough is expensive enough. The Savannah Bananas have been just a tremendous financial windfall. Have you been able to look at what their product is and look at ways that you might be able to adapt? I know that they're more, they're almost like the clown princes of baseball type of thing, almost like the Harlem Globetrotters. So it's not a complete one-to-one type of thing, but do you look at them as a way of being able to reach fans and things that you can adapt from their game plan to bring to your league?
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because when I was a general manager in the South Atlantic League for the Detroit Tigers organization in Fayetteville, Savannah had a ball club. They were in the South Atlantic League, and their affiliates during my time frame were either the Cardinals or the Dodgers. So they had a really good minor league operations being with the Dodgers and the Cardinals. And Savannah, they might have drawn maybe 2,800 fans a game. Now, remember, back then, minor league baseball was 71 game home schedule because you played 142 games during the year. But people don't realize that when you market 71 home games in a small market like Savannah, that's pretty good job drawing 2,500, 2,700 fans a game. But, Jesse and them with Jesse Cole, who really is the brains behind the Savannah Bananas. When they came to Savannah, they got into the Coastal Plains League, and they wanted to do all these extra things. And, I call them the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, but they've done a lot of great things from a marketing perspective about baseball. They believe, like, when players run onto the field, when they introduce them, don't introduce them from the dugout. They introduce them from the stands. Mm-hmm. So, you're a member there. And I've been really, from a marketing perspective, I've been just blown away of how well they do things. And it's a different form of baseball. A lot of people that are purist baseball people, don't want to, I guess, accept them. But from a marketing perspective, I look at what they do, and I think they have really taught a lot of things to a lot of people in all of sports about how to market the brand, Yeah. And I just think that, I think they're going to continue doing it. I think they've expanded to their league, but it's uniqueness. It's unique. And, but I think there are things that they do from a branding perspective, marketing, that any team could implement in their organization. That's my thoughts.
5 years from now, Rick, what does success look like to you running the Valley Baseball League?
Well, I would like to put my 5 years in. And what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see us have more draft picks. It's important to have draft picks, and we do have draft picks, don't get me wrong, but I want to see people get to the major leagues. It's one thing increasing your draft picks, but it's more about getting those guys to the big leagues. That's number one for me. Number two is, I want to build a fundraising network, a program where people are giving back to kids, because, it's another topic for you and I to discuss, with the NCAA, the NIL, and all that. And, right. It really more, NIL morely impacts football and basketball, but, these are college student athletes. These are baseball players that are trying to live a dream. And, I know what it was like for me trying to live my dream, of getting there. So I'd like to see us have better fundraising efforts, that we go out to companies and say, you know what, this is a 50C13. Let's donate. Let's make a donation, because it benefits from buying baseballs, uniforms, finding those people. I'd like to see us expand. I think one of the things when we expand, especially when you're in small towns, it is really amazing how hard it is that these people who are presidents of the board have to get host families. It's really, really hard for host families. So anybody out there who becomes a host family, I applaud you, because players love being around in a family. It's a big advantage, instead of being in a hotel room or being in a dorm. And I think if we expand, I want to expand in markets where we are going to be playing on college fields. I think it makes a big difference that you're playing at facilities that you have. Nothing wrong with high school fields. There's not. At Cape Cod, all their fields are high school fields. So when someone says, well, I'm going to go play in the Cape, well, yeah, you're going to play on all high school fields. So, I don't want to get caught up with, you got to be in a perfect complex, but like the Northwoods League, they have a fantastic summer collegiate league, the Prospect League. There's a lot of good competitive leagues out there, but we're in our backyard. North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, they produce some of the best high school baseball players in the country. So I want to make sure that those players come to the Valley League, because if you look at any good college football program, Nick Saban always used to say, you got to win your state. If you don't win your state in recruiting, it hurts you. And I think that's very important. At the end of 5 years, I like for us to have more players get to the big leagues. I like for us to see better fundraising opportunities. I like to see better expansion. And I would also like to see us keep our homegrown players in this market, because we're surrounded by states that produce top quality high school baseball players.
Rick, right now in the Northeast, baseball feels 1,000 years away right now with how cold it is outside. But if people want to learn more, where should they look?
Well, what I would tell people to do is go to valleybaseballleague.com. If you want to reach out to me, I love for anybody to talk to me that's interested in coaching for 2027 for the following season. They can reach out to me at rick@valleybaseballleague.org. Because all my emails come into me at .org because we're a 501c3, but we have a brand new website through Presto Sports, and I believe it's valleybaseballleague.com. But just reach out to me, rick@valleybaseballleague.org. And I'll be more than glad to answer any questions or put you in touch with the right people.
Well, Rick, thanks for giving us a few minutes, man. And the baseball cannot get here soon enough. I'm sure you got a lot of work to do before then, but as someone who's just a fan, we can't get to the summer months fast enough right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Gordon. I appreciate being on your podcast, and you do a great job. And thank you for taking the time and talking to the Valley Baseball League. I appreciate it.
Remember college? Well, now, college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. Is your private student loan debt keeping you up at night? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and get you a custom payment that you can afford. And they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today.
All right, finally, when you're waiting around 2 weeks for the Super Bowl, sometimes some strange stories pop up. You got nothing else to focus on, right? Some weird stories come along, and safe to say this year delivered one of the more strange, more unsettling, more disturbing ones, because instead of talking about the Patriots and the Seahawks and Super Bowl 60 and everything that's going to go on there, we were talking about the Giants, and not because of John Harbaugh, the assistant coaches, or Todd Monken. No, we were talking, of course, about Steve Tisch, and the fact that his name showed up in the latest release of Epstein material from the Jeffrey Epstein files. Last week, the Department of Justice released around, I think it was 3 million files, multiple documents on multiple investigations into Epstein. And lo and behold, whose name got buried there inside the massive dump of information was the Giants co-owner, Steve Tisch. And it was not like it just showed up once or twice or 3 times or 5 times or 10 times. No. It showed up 400 times. So that is not a great position to find yourself in. But let's slow this down, because I get that Jeffrey Epstein's name is one of those ones that creates an immediate reaction, and rightfully so. There's no public allegation that Steve Tisch committed a crime. There's been no charge. There's no accusation that he participated in trafficking. And I think that has to kind of matter when people are going off at the hip saying what's going to happen next. Some of that context kind of matters too, right? Now, look, some of the emails absolutely give you the ick and are disturbing and unsettling, talking about women in certain ways, whether they were working girls or they were pro or civilian. Language that at best shows just awful judgment and raises very serious questions about what else might pop up as a result of these files. But the other part of this that can't be just simply brushed aside, and no one can, these emails took place after Jeffrey Epstein had already served jail time for having sex crimes involving a minor. So this is not the type of thing, nobody knew back then. No, everybody knew about it, especially if you were associating with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Steve Tisch did issue a statement. I'm sure he didn't write it himself, but he called it a brief association, said the emails involved adult women, as if that needed to be said out loud, said he never took Epstein up on invitations, never visited the island, and he deeply regrets associating with him, which I truly believe now he absolutely does. And that response checks the legal boxes that you kind of have to check, which then, of course, brings us to the NFL, because everybody's expecting the NFL to do something, and Roger Goodell on Monday had his kind of state of the game address leading up to the Super Bowl. And if you've listened to Roger Goodell speak for long enough, you kind of know he's going to hit certain parts of the script every time when something like this comes along, right? The league is aware. They want to understand the facts. They're looking into the context. They've not opened an investigation. They're not discussing discipline. In fact, Goodell kind of even pushed back on the media's points of saying that the media was getting ahead of themselves in terms of discipline. And here's the part that people have to understand if they're being honest about this story and how it works. Roger Goodell does not run the NFL. He might be the face of the NFL. He's the commissioner of the NFL, but the owners run the NFL. They're the owners. Roger Goodell works for them. Now, he enforces policy when the ownership allows it to, but, it's not going to be the case when it's the people being investigated are the people who sign the checks, like Steve Tisch. He's not a player. He's not a coach. He's not an executive. He is one of the owners. The owners run the league. So, yes, the NFL has a personal conduct policy, and Roger Goodell referenced that as a guardrail. But history kind of tells us everything we need to know about how that policy applies to the most powerful people in the league, the owners. Like, the league put up with Dan Snyder for years until literally they couldn't deal with them anymore, and it took public pressure and congressional scrutiny. The Robert Kraft story with the massage parlors just faded from, there was no suspension there either. So when people are talking what's going to happen with Steve Tisch, I think the honest answer is probably nothing. Like, I don't know what people are expecting, but in fairness, we don't really have enough information to legally force action. And the league really doesn't have a structure in place or the interest in investigating its most powerful figures, unless it's just absolutely unavoidable. And the other part of this that kind of makes this story a little more unsettling, I would not be surprised if Steve Tisch's name is the last recognizable name that we get from this type of information when it drops. That's kind of the nature of these releases whenever they come along. Names get recognized, but the judgment and the connotation is kind of murky, which also brings me to one of the more baffling things I've heard about. If you ever needed to know how fans work, people floating the idea that this news came at a terrible time. The Giants were having this great offseason. Terrible time? You're having this great offseason. Guys, come on. Is there a good time to have your name mentioned in the Epstein files? I don't think so. Hey, if this had only happened in the season, we'd be able to move on a whole lot quicker. Well, I mean, guys, that shows you the mindset of fans, right? That framing tells you everything you need to know about how fans compartmentalize things, right? Wins are good, losses are bad, and scandal is inconvenient. So the reality of this whole story, unless more information becomes available, we know that Steve Tisch's name is in the Epstein files, and to question his judgment in the future, look, there'll never be a time I hear Steve Tisch's name that I won't at least think about this a little bit. But unless new facts emerge that forces the league's hand where they have no choice, well, I think that we kind of have an idea. There's not going to be a suspension. There's not going to be a forced sale. There's not going to be some sweeping investigation. The league doesn't have subpoena power, which they would need to have to do a thorough investigation in this. And I would say the owners themselves don't want that because they probably got a few skeletons themselves. Who knows? The next time there's materials released from the Epstein files, there might be another NFL owner that gets mentioned in it. So they don't want to dig too deep. So the owners are not going to go after the other owners unless there's just no other choice. And look, in terms of Roger Goodell, you know how this is going to play out. The next time he gets asked about it, if he ever gets asked about it again, it's going to be old news, and the fans and the league will move on. So if you're expecting some big conclusion to the fact that Steve Tisch's name was involved, and it is a bombshell to see an NFL owner in those kind of materials, but you know how NFL owners work. You know the playbook by now. And to expect anything less, that would be even more surprising than finding an NFL owner's name in the Epstein files. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. We'll be back later in the week where we'll look ahead to Super Bowl 60, break it all down, give you the pick for the game as well. And that will be later this week, right here on Gordon Damer on Sports.